So let's talk about the training. We all need to polish our skill before we can do anything just right. And more fun, the complete the takes, the more practice we need to count ourselves as full member of the band. And we have to attempt the delicate synonym movement that go into producing language sounds. You know that it's good to do some crashing around the first, but there can still be some rhyme and reason to how we crash. So I am Monty Lieberman and this is the Language. Babies come into the world already got a learning language, prime to listen the enormous well of words and sentences around them and complete a solid grammar. But practicing language is totally different things. We are not ready for that at all. Let's beyond the fact that the little baby has actually needs to restructure themselves before infant can really make speech sounds. And let's also look beyond the baby stage and stressing the two cute little syllables can be. No, today we want to look at what's going on with kids when they are ready to go. They have got their tongues and learning in the right place and they are excited to try saying real words to real people. At this point, by the time they are a year old or so, they already know all the relevant speech sounds of their language. They hone in on those phonics, but just because they know what they should be doing doesn't mean they can actually pull it off. Like a band with a hyperactive 8-year-old drummer, speech goes very fast and it requires some very precise moment to get done at very exact moment. Mr. Tiger by a few millimeters? You have just made a different sound. Did you forget to open up the pipe for air to get out your nose? Oops, wrong consonants. So a lot of the mistake that little kids make when they are learning how to talk come down to still not having all the practice they need to get everything right. And so this kind of mistake are really common if you look at across all the different child speech errors. Over 90% of the words, you can say some of these kinds of mistakes. Anytime that you all talk with a kid who is 1 or 2 or 3, you probably notice them, and that odds are you throw they were super cute too. So today we'll look at the substitution errors. This is where the kids substitute one pattern for another, and they are tend to fall into a few different types. Fortunately, most of them are really transparent as to what the changes. Let's start with a process called stopping. Try to picture this. You are running towards your new girlfriend's ex who speak at the fight with you and you want to punch them. You go all the way up to them and you cock your arm back and you let your first fly toward their face. Now what's going to be easier for you? Holding back at the very last seconds with your knuckles almost grazing their face or slamming into them? Is it slamming right? So that's what's going on with the stopping too. The sound you want to make is a fricative and to do what? Your tongue or lips have to go almost the whole way to close the elbow through your mouth, but not quite. Like if you want to make a S, your tongues move up towards an alveolar ridge behind your teeth, so close that the air flowing by gets all noisy and straightened, but it cannot go the whole way to the ridge and close off the airflow. You will make it too. And that's what the kids to do what cannot control their tongues well enough to pause just short, so instead of the fricative, they will make a stop. Now, the stop will usually get pronounced at the same place and have the same voicing as the original sounds the kids want to make. Everything you usually use to describe where and how consonants are pronounced will be the same, except the manner of articulation, like sin will turn to tense or diesel to dibble. So, but what if there isn't exactly is a place to make a particular stop, like we have a labiodental fricative like f and v, and eccidental fricative like t and d, but we don't have stop in this place. So what's happened then? Well, kids just go to the closest place otherwise. So the t and th will also turn to the tense, since the back of the teeth or the alveolar ridge is the closest place to stop. Closing the lips entirely is pretty easy. So your f and f will turn into the bilabials like 5 into the pipe, and you can see the voiceless first stay voiceless and p, but the voiceless f becomes a voice p. It's pretty close to the same, but this is really common. But it's not the only kinds of substitution error. Just as we can look at the stopping missing the mark by losing too much, you can also let your tongue and lips to be too open. If it gets too open, it turns into a glide, basically just this size of vowel, and so this process is known as the gliding. You can get the almost open controls quite right. This is where you get some of the most stereotypical cute kids error in English, like rock become the walk and Lucas become the Lucas. Oh. For English, R usually turns into W when it undergoes gliding, but L has been found to shift to W or Y, like look might become wook, but love might become Y instead, and this seems to depend on what the L is near. The upcoming T makes the L come more towards W, since it's already far back and almost W already, but the further front vowel like makes the choice of the further front glide Y more likely. So, these are two different mistakes kids make because they cannot finally control open or how close their mouths are. But let's take a look at the different kinds of substitution pattern. First, how about this? Try contouring your lips. Easy, right? Or hey, try wiggling the tips of your tongue around. It's also pretty simple, but now try moving the main body of your tongue like all the way back there. That's harder, right? So there is a tendency for kids to move consonant further forward in the mouth. They have more control out there, even it's not perfect. This is known as fronting, where we move the stomach's place of articulation more towards the front. So let's look at a few examples of this. Take a simple word like go, that k is all of the back of your mouth. You make it by raising the body of your tongue to the soft palate. If you front the tongue to the alveolar ridge, you get do or the is still a voice stop. But now you can do it with the tip of your tongue instead. Way easier, but it's not just with stops. Say you are a baby and you want to talk about your toy shape. Well, you can move the forward from baying post alveolar to alveolar and get sheep instead. One cool thing about fronting is that sometimes it lets babies to make sounds that aren't even in the language that they are learning. Like most dialect of English only have two affricates, the voiceless and the voice, but post-alveolar. But why keep things behind the alveolar ridge if you can move them up? For a word like chalk, you could make it forward and easy suck, or for jump, you could keep it alveolar and say jump. English may not have s or z as the phonemes, like some other language do, like they are both good sounds in language like Albanian and Norse, for example, but English learning kids will still make them. Our next error types is kind of similar in that it happened because controlling everything that you need to make a particular sound is hard. If you want to make a nasal consonant, you have to do things around your vocal tract. You have to close the air flowing out towards your lips, and you have to lower your soft palate so that the air can escape instead through your nose. You need those two ingredients or it's not a nasal, but doing both of those things at once is really tricky, and so kids will sometimes leave out the opening of nose parts. Their volumes stay up, and so they make just normal stop sounds like b or d instead. This process is known as the nasalization, so you can see this at work and sometimes like say camp, turning to cap, or pen, turning to page. They stay voiced because nasal are voiced, but they sound just like a regular B and D. If you don't know what word or instead, you could not be able to tell just from what they said. You say to go to bed and go to band could be the exact same things. There is also nothing stopping kids from doing more than one of these in the same word. In fact, they do what a whole lot. If you look at a word like jam, and 2-year-old might say instead jam, so fronting the first consonant and the nasalization just second one. Or take a word like knives, you could see knife with the nasalizations at the beginning and stopping at the end. So when children make these cute mistakes, it doesn't mean that they don't know what sounds their language uses, or when they know they are wrong, as well talk about back on the website. It just means that working all their different mouth bites is really hard. To sound like a big kid, you just have to go through a whole lot of training. So we've reached the end of the link space for this week's. If you didn't just glance on by, you'll learn that the kids make a lot of space errors because they cannot quite manage their mouths yet. That same mistakes like stopping and gliding happen because of a lack of fine control to keep from being all open or closed. The fronting comes from there being more articulatory control at the front of the vocal tract, and that generalizations happen because doing two mouth things at once is too hard. The Link Space is produced by me, Motil Lieberman, and directed by the Edel Elias Privilege, and it's written by both of us. Our editor is George Columb, our production assistant is Stefan Hartups, our music is by Shane Turns, and our graphic team is Atelier Muse. Here's down the comment below, or you can bring the discussions back over to our website where we have some extra material on this topic. Also try dropping by our new store where we have a bunch of cool linguistic stuff. Check us out on the Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you want to keep expanding your own personal link space, please subscribe, and well, see you next week Wednesday. Wah Cahaya.